Live from the headquarters of Telesur English in Quito, Ecuador. This is From the South, and I'm Suni Gray with a very special welcome to viewers joining us in Antigua and Barbuda. A global feminist strike is taking place in commemoration of International Women's Day. Women in more than 170 countries are demonstrating for equality. Many of the rallies started at midnight. According to the United Nations, women earn on average 23% less than their male colleagues. And in countries like Mexico, 11 women are killed every day just because of their gender. And Nicaragua is one of the most progressive countries in narrowing the gender gap. Women there spoke to us about the importance of achieving gender equality.
Rosvania works as a supervisor for the rebuilding of public schools in Nicaragua. She is in charge of over 300 workers, most of them are men.
We women are demonstrating that we keep growing in unbelievable ways, and this is because of the policies that the government has put in place. Gender equality is really that important.
Nicaraguan women have a fundamental role in society at every level, political, social and cultural.
Women have gone from being fundamental in the home to being fundamental in the workplace. They are increasingly becoming essential, thanks to the policies implemented by the government.
According to a study of the gender gap in 2017, Nicaragua is one of the countries in the region with greatest gender equality. Advances in the fields of education, health, political participation and economic opportunities have helped Nicaragua to close its gender gap by more than 80%.
They are taking us into account as women. This has never happened before. And now we can finally say that we are equal to men. It's not them who rule, it's us. We finally feel empowered.
The Human Development Plan that the government is promoting declares that women should occupy 50% of political and public positions. This is aimed at restoring their rights throughout the country.
Over in Paraguay, women are still battling for equal pay, and they're taking their fight to the Ministry of Justice. Osvaldo Zayas has more from Asunción.
The first activity commemorating International Women's Day in Paraguay will take place in front of the Ministry of Justice and Labor. There, female workers will deliver a series of demands to the Labor Ministry. They are asking for their rights as women to be met. Women are still earning 30% less than men. They also stated that high-level positions are extremely hard to obtain and are predominantly filled by men. As well as this, in many cases, there is no daycare available for children in their companies, despite the fact that the law requires it when there are more than 50 female workers. Feminist groups have organized a protest in the Plaza de las Mujeres. From there, they will go to Plaza de la Democracia, where a festival is set to take place to end International Women's Day here in Asunción.
And campesinos in Mexico are also taking to the streets. Our correspondent Pablo Perez is there and joins us now live from Mexico City. Hi Pablo, tell us what's going on there and what their demands are.
So, yet again, a group of indigenous farmers englobed in the Plan de Ayala National Coordination are present here outside the Secretary of Government, a secretary that, as you can see, has walled itself to keep the protesters outside. So they have a long list of demands, but the most urgent for them is the presentation alive of the two of their comrades, Álvaro Bernardo Reyes Cruz and Federico Cruz Morales. They are community authorities that they were removed from their community after an altercation with a neighboring town. And as the authorities have yet to start an investigation, and so the family and the townspeople of Álvaro Bernardo and Federico are demanding for the authorities to act expeditiously and present them alive and well. They have even started a hunger strike, and they say that they will not stop until their comrades are presented well and alive, and and a list of other demands that have yet to be heard for several years, such as the cancellation of extensive mining projects authorized by the federal government in their indigenous land, and the threats by federal authorities to their community, indigenous traditional authorities in the communities in Oaxaca, Chiapas, Puebla, and Michoacan. They want them to respect their autonomy. So this is the situation here. We have over 1,000 indigenous farmers outside the Secretary of Government in Mexico, and they are expecting for the Secretary to attend to their demands anytime soon, or along the day.
Thank you so much. We've been talking to our correspondent, Pablo Perez, there in Mexico City. We'll take a short break now, but join us again after this look at what our multimedia colleagues are reporting. Welcome back. Venezuelans are gearing up for the start of their electoral campaign, which will be a race between 5 contenders. President Nicolas Maduro has urged the United Nations to send a delegation of observers that will certify the transparency of the process. He believes the U.S. is pressuring the international body not to do so. Meanwhile, the special period opened by the National Electoral Council for registration continues. The final list of citizens entitled to vote will be published on March 26th. And the 3-day event, We Are All Venezuela, came to a close with hundreds of participants from around the world. President Nicolas Maduro presided over the closing ceremony, calling for people to defend their rights.
The task of building countries that are free and that are independent, the task of building a new economy that's heading towards socialism, it is still to be done. What we have done so far is demonstrating that the socialist systems, in every aspect of the spiritual, cultural, moral, and human life of our people, politically is superior than anything that could have seen before or that we will see.
5 years after Hugo Chávez's death, people remember him for his efforts to increase integration across Latin America. In Brazil, intellectuals consider his work with former President Lula da Silva to defend their national sovereignty one of his most important acts.
One of them knew poverty in Barinas, the other one in Pernambuco. The first started his struggle in the military, the other as a blacksmith. Both of them were presidents of countries doomed by colonial underdevelopment.
It brought hope back. a fight for own resources. If the people don't own their own resources, they are not sovereign. That is what Lula did, as well as Chavez, Evo, Rafael Correa. They worked. Kirchner did the same in Argentina, looking to strengthen continental union.
For the coordinator of the landless Brazilians movement, Da Silva and Chavez were aligned in their fight for the people of Latin America.
I have very good memories of how nice they were as politicians. They weren't leaders distant from the misunderstood people. They lived very close to social groups of Puerto Alegre. When Chavez started the 21st century socialism idea, the World Social Forum in Belém, along with Lula, Lugo, Correa, Evo, that was very important. I think both of them left a great legacy by showing us the way to face Latin American problems with processes of integration.
One of the most important works of the Lula-Chavez team was the rejection of ALCA against George Bush in Mar del Plata. Together, they moved to stop imperialism.
We have been accused of so many things, and I know that behind that there is a deep laughter in this continent. Because, as Comrade Lula said one day, those who know Chavez and have lived with him know that Venezuela has too much democracy, which is a metaphor because there is never too much democracy.
Fate saw both ex-presidents fight against cancer. The death of Chavez touched the hearts of the world as well as Lula da Silva's.
He cared about the interests of Venezuela, Latin America, and most of all of the poor. I think that not every century we can find a man as good as Chavez. Not every day a country chooses a person so close to his people.
In spite of coups and neoliberal progress in the region, the legacy of these two great political leaders of Latin American history remains in different countries, which saw social achievements grow beyond borders.
In Colombia, the FARC political party has pulled its party leader, Rodrigo Londoño, out of the presidential race. Londoño is currently recovering from heart surgery after suffering a cardiac arrest last Thursday. In addition to Londoño's health problems, the FARC cited their lack of political rights as another reason for their withdrawal. However, they've expressed interest in holding talks to form a national convergence government. Meanwhile, Londoño, popularly known as Timonchenko, has sent a video from his hospital bed on the occasion of International Women's Day.
Congratulations to all women, especially to the Colombian ones. Their role in the peace process has been decisive. I hope that you all have a chance today to think about how best to implement the Havana agreements. I count on you to keep building peace in Colombia.
Now, the FARC's decision to pull out of the elections came as its vice presidential candidate, Imelda Daza, was in Britain to try and get international support. Our correspondent in London, Pablo Nevarate, reports.
On a two-day visit to London, Imelda Daza has come to build support for the Havana peace agreements being implemented in her country. She will also talk about the serious human rights situation in Colombia and the difficulties facing her party, the Revolutionary Alternative Force of the Commons, as it seeks to take part in the coming elections.
In Colombia, we have ended an armed confrontation that lasted more than 5 decades. With that, we hoped to begin a more inclusive democratic process in the country. Unfortunately, what we have is the systematic violation of the right to life.
The human cost for Imelda's party has been significant. 38 of its members have been murdered since the peace agreements were signed in November 2016. While recently the FARC was forced to suspend electoral campaigning after violent attacks on scheduled events in different Colombian cities, Imelda is clear what role international solidarity can play.
Peace
in Colombia depends a great deal on international opinion, on the solidarity we get in different international institutions that support us.
Imelda Daza's visit to London has been organised by Justice for Colombia, a UK-based human rights organisation set up by the British trade union movement in 2002. Since then, it has played an important role in documenting Colombia's human and labour rights crisis and supporting the search for peace with social justice in the country.
I think the Colombian government listens to the international community. The peace agreement in itself was created with the participation of the international community. So they have an investment, they're invested in this peace agreement being a success.
The Labour Member of Parliament, Tony Lloyd, is one such British politician who has campaigned on human rights and the search for peace in Colombia for a number of years.
But people shouldn't confuse the end of the military conflict with the kind of necessary conditions for Colombia to move forward, which is why Imelda Daza's candidature for the vice presidency and those of other people who are progressive, who are fighting for social justice, for economic justice, for the basic human rights that we take for granted, say here in the United Kingdom, is so important.
Imelda Daza will return to Colombia on Thursday to continue the dangerous job of campaigning in the run-up to May's presidential elections. This Sunday also sees parliamentary elections for Colombia's Senate and House of Representatives. Meanwhile, in Britain's Parliament and elsewhere in the UK, Friends of Colombia's peace process will continue urging the Colombian government to address the human rights crisis and ensure a safe environment for political participation. Pablo Navarrete, Telesur, London.
There have been protests in Chile over the signing of the renewed Trans-Pacific Partnership deal. Protesters defined it as modern slavery, and they warn about the negative effect the pact entails. In Santiago, around 300 protesters gathered outside the Foreign Ministry, holding signs against the deal. They say the agreement will increase inequality, and it will have a negative impact on citizens' health, nutrition, and their right to information. The pact affects 500 million people and represents 13% of the world's gross domestic product.
This is like a gateway for Monsanto in all its magnitude, for hydroelectric to extract everything they want to extract. There will also be problems with medication, as there will be no generic medications.
11 countries will sign the pact in Santiago, Chile today. They say the agreement will cut trade tariffs significantly and boost economic growth. The United States is noticeably absent from the agreement after U.S. President Donald Trump pulled out of negotiations at the 11th hour. Canada is building on the momentum. Right off the back of the TPP, it will start formal free trade negotiations with Mercosur, which is the trade bloc made up of Argentina, Brazil, Paraguay, and Uruguay. Time now for another short break, but join us again after another look at what our multimedia colleagues are reporting.
Contentísima, súper orgullosa de poder conseguir este logro para mi país, para mí, para la gente que me sigue. Un trabajo bastante fuerte, bastante de mucho tiempo para poder llegar hasta este momento. Lo anhelaba, lo ansiaba, recuperar y revalidar mi título como campeona. Para mí es un honor trabajar con él y seguir trabajando. Espero seguir a su lado. Bueno, el presidente Hugo Chávez fue un pilar fundamental para el deporte en mi país. Impulsó muchos métodos para que el deporte llegara a los más bajos niveles y que los niños siempre vieran que el deporte era importante para la salud, para los valores humanos.
So let's go back to International Women's Day and talk about the specific concerns of a particularly vulnerable group of women, trans women in the Caribbean. Our guest is Renee Green. She's the Associate Director for Community Engagement at TransWave Jamaica. Hello, Renee. Thank you so much for joining us.
Hi, Siini. Thank you for having me.
So, as a trans woman who's born and raised in Jamaica, what does International Women's Day mean to you?
Well, it's really recognizing the struggles that all women have faced and just how far women overall have come. As you know, in the Caribbean and largely the world, in most countries, women are oppressed. Women form part of a patriarchal society where they're seen as objects and where they're treated as less than because of the fact that women are seen as the weaker of the two main genders. So I think the International Women's Day really highlights just how important women are and how strong we are and how resilient women are and just how far we've come through the years.
So Renee, TransWave does a lot of community outreach and training sessions in Jamaica. What has the reception been to the work that you all are doing in Jamaica?
Well, I mean, you had some negative reactions, and some are mostly positive, though. And I think it's because of the visibility work that we have been doing. We've been trying our best to mainstream trans issues and show that people of trans experience exist in Jamaica and exist in the Caribbean, and that we're here and that we've always been here, and that our rights should be respected and protected. And since we've been doing that, we've had a lot of support, and of course we've had a few negative people coming out as well, saying, voicing their disapproval. But we have so far been receiving good reactions, and I can tell you that I think it's because of the work that we've been doing that things have been slowly improving. It's still not at the level where we need it to be, and there's still a lot of work that needs to be done, but we can see small improvements, and we're really grateful for that.
Can we talk a little bit about what you want to see for the future in Jamaica, for trans rights in Jamaica, and talk a little bit more about where you want Jamaica to go and maybe what the path they need to take?
Well, really what we want is not much, but it's just to be recognized legally and to actually have legislation put in place to protect us and our rights as individuals and as citizens of Jamaica, laws that actually recognize trans identities and the ability to even change our gender markers on legal documents. That's something that we actually want. We want greater access to healthcare, and we want trans-specific healthcare as well to be included in pretty much all spheres of healthcare. We want doctors to be specialized so that they can actually offer us the types of treatment that we require. And we just want to be treated fairly. And I'm envisioning a Jamaica where everyone is respected and where everyone is treated fairly, irrespective of your gender identity or your sexual orientation or your socioeconomic background. That is the type of Jamaica I'm envisioning, and that's the type of Jamaica that we at TransWave are working for, as well as the other regional trans organizations. We're working for a Caribbean that respects all its citizens and not just some.
Thank you so much for chatting with us, Renee, and happy International Women's Day to you. We were just talking to Renee Green. She is the Associate Director for Community Engagement at Transweave, Jamaica. Other news now. Palestinian women commemorated International Women's Day by expressing their rejection of the blockade against Gaza. They also criticized U.S. President Donald Trump's recognition of Jerusalem as the capital of Israel. Noor Harazin has more.
Palestine's General Women Union on Wednesday organized protests in Gaza and the occupied West Bank, marking International Women's Day. Dozens of women from all political spectrum gathered outside the UN headquarters, voicing anger at U.S. President Donald Trump's recognition of Jerusalem as Israel's capital. Union's director Amal Hamad delivered a press conference in which she confirmed that the Palestinians will not allow Trump's deal of the century to pass.
From here, from Gaza, we tell Trump that his deal of the century will not be admitted no matter how much grave the challenges are. A deal that does not meet the aspirations of the Palestinian people will not be allowed to pass. Palestine will not yield to the U.S. blackmail. From Gaza, we confirm that we are committed to our people despite the blockade and the deteriorating economic and humanitarian conditions.
International Women's Day is a worldwide event that celebrates women's political and social achievements on 8 March every year. In Palestine, the event is an opportunity for women to tell the world that they will commit to the Palestinian national contests and will continue to struggle until the liberation of Palestine. Noor Harazin, Tlisu TV, Gaza.
And finally, in India, acid attack victims hit the catwalk in the western city of Thane to mark International Women's Day. The fashion show was organized to honor women who were intentionally disfigured by highly corrosive acid. About 1,500 acid attacks are recorded globally every year. India alone accounts for more than 1,000 of them. And 90% of the victims are young women. Well, that brings us to the end of this newscast. For these and many other stories, you can find them on our website at talisyourtv.net/English. And join us on social media, Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. For Tell Us Your English, I'm Soini Gray. Thank you so much for watching.